afternoon. Are we on 4 o'clock straight up on the East Coast? It is indeed a Tuesday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We got 2 hours to play with on a very Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. As always, very easy to get in touch with us on multiple platforms. Of course, the YouTube channel X at Rich Q on Q, SR 1029 FM The Game, part of the Coastal Sports Digital Network. And as I mentioned, get social with me. Rich Q on the mic on TikTok, IG and X at Rich Q on Q. Busy show, NFL heavy over the next 2 hours or so. And listen, we're at the point of our broadcast day, as we like to say, where it's at nauseum. It gets to the point, if you are a New York Football Giant fan, where you just can't take it anymore. I mean, it becomes now just, it's almost as though it's not even maddening. Really. It's not even maddening if you are a Giants fan. I mean, it's almost as though you'll wake up after a game. You'll wake up after every single solitary friggin' season over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and you think to yourself, what did you do? Who did you hurt? Who did you scorn? Who did you wrong to deserve this slop, this nonsense? And it was on full display as the Giants found another entertaining, creative, and of course, just the debacle of a way to lose a friggin' football game. And let me start. There's so many levels to unpack. And, after games like this, you got to listen to the talking heads, right? Because, all the former players are coming out and they're talking about how the quarterback plays in his style. And they're all jackasses, by the way, because they're friggin' clueless with some stuff. We'll get into that. You got the kicker, doesn't even, let his foot off the gas to go for a kick, right? I mean, I've never seen that. It's almost like you get the wedge stuck, right? Goffing a little bit. You've got a bust of a top 5 draft pick that, oh, by the way, the GM is still defending. You have a no-show last night, and we can sit there and we can argue about the physicality of the New England Patriots. They are a legit football team. It's not even debatable. I mean, it was almost like a mercy killing last night. 33-15 doesn't even tell the story. They could have put up 50 last night against the Giants. And you watch the game, and because let's start with Jackson Dart, who I think is going to be an exceptional quarterback. And I just think a lot of people that are going after this kid for his style of play, I got to be honest, I think you're clueless. I really do. I think you're clueless. Like, you guys want to sit there and you want to tell a quarterback who's running full friggin' speed, who's trying to get a first down, when to get out of bounds. And we looked at the play last night, and look, he got cracked. And the Pats sent a message, and what did he do? He popped back up. He's not going to change his style of play, and that's why he's getting annoyed at the questions, because, look, it's football. You're going to get hit. So because he's coming back from a concussion, every single solitary time, all you had to do was listen to Aikman and Buck at nauseum talk about the hits this kid is. We get it. Like, friggin' move on. There's nothing to see here. It's not like the old coach in Dable who was designing these RPOs for this kid. This is how he plays. This is his style. So again, the NFL sends out a memo, and they're basically telling all 32 teams that we're not going to deal with this anymore with the quarterbacks. We're not going to deal with this anymore with the quarterback. So again, you are free bait. If you're starting to run out of bounds, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, they do this nonsense kind of stuff and they try to stretch for a couple more yards. If you take the hit, there's not going to be a flag. Now, the reality is this. If last night that was Allen or Mahomes, you're seeing the flag. But here's the thing that bugs the hell out of me. It really is annoying. And I get why this kid is getting annoyed. What the hell is he supposed to do? He's running out of bounds to pick up the first down and got cracked inbounds. It's football. Like, back off the kid already. My God, it was at nauseum last night. He is going to learn the hard way. It's a rough lesson to learn, but that's who he is. And I got to listen, honestly, to these clown talking heads and some of these friggin' ex-players. Again, You're asking someone at full strength, full speed. I get it. He's a bright kid. He's a smart kid. He got down after that. It's magnified because he was concussed and he missed several games and because of the violence of the hit. That's all that is. Nothing to see here. Move on. Everyone else can friggin' talk about it for the next 25 hours. I don't give a shit. I'm over it. I'm over it. It's how he plays. Even Aikman said he's like McMahon. He's got that moxie. And what did he do the next possession? He stuck it in the back of the end zone. So Jackson Dart's the least of my concerns. Does he need to be smarter at times? Yeah. And he'll mature. And like I said, he'll learn his lesson. Did I think last night the Patriots, a bunch of bullies, a couple cheap shots here and there? Yeah, I did. But you know what? Again, that's, Mike Grable. Think about this. Here's the difference. Here is the difference from what you saw from a good ascending team that was going nowhere a couple years ago and a bad football team and a bad culture in the New York Giants. When Dart got hit and went flying out of bounds and Theo Johnson did the right thing, you're going to defend your teammate. You're going to defend your franchise quarterback. I have no problem. Take the 15, fine. But then you notice that in the hoobra, the fisticuffs, if you will, the Pats defender basically just laid off, walked away. That's all coaching. That's all discipline. That's exactly what Mike Vrabel has instilled in these guys. Why? Because he learned from the best. Disciplined football. Meanwhile, on the opposite sideline with the Giants and Mike Kafka, you've got Abdul Carter benched again. Like, these are the bigger stories than a quarterback who was out a couple weeks takes a big hit. If he doesn't take that hit last night, we're not talking about it. We're not. Or you guys are going to put it under a microscope. Oh my God, he didn't slide fast enough. Like, stop. Just get over it, please. Stop. So you got a situation with Carter who's benched again. Like, you got to get to the point when you are an NFL player and you're an NFL rookie, you have to understand what's at stake. You have to understand that talent is not enough sometimes. You have to hold yourself accountable. Somebody needs to pull that kid by his face and basically say, get your head out of your ass. Which also leads me to this. There are no leaders in that locker room. Brian Burns, I feel bad for that kid. I would say maybe he's the best when it comes to the de facto leaders, and he's a baller, and he's an all-pro, and he plays his guts out, and he leaves everything out on the field. But I'm telling you, collectively, Abdul Carter, he just doesn't get it. He just does not get it. And right now, it's just unbelievable that, I'll get to the GM who was late for his presser today because the GM's talked during the bye week. And you're not going to hold this kid accountable. You're going to give him a pass again. It's embarrassing what's going on. It's not even like laughable anymore. It's just, you give up the big punt return or the kickoff return to start the game. You give up the punt return. You muff a punt and you fumble. You lose 3 because your kicker decides to stop full speed. You're given 13 points. I haven't even started with the head coach who showed you last night he's got no shot in hell of being a head coach in the NFL because he's friggin' clueless. He's got no sense of the game, and he's absolutely gutless in a game that's not going to do anything except try to build a little confidence. If you show confidence within your players, he decides to be chicken shit, which I'll get into in a moment. So like I said, there's such a nastiness going on right now with this franchise, and you can see the disconnect. You can see the disconnect, and the fans, they don't want to deal with it anymore. They don't want to deal with it anymore. They don't. And like I said, you guys want to nitpick this kid because he didn't get out of bounds a split friggin' second, and then if he gets out of bounds and he gets hit, you're still going to bitch and complain. Like, I don't want to hear from you today. I got bigger fish to fry than worrying about Jackson Dart taking a big hit, which was a legal hit. And that's the reason the NFL came out with that memo. Okay? That's football, man. That's football. But rest assured, if that Mahomes or Allen, a flag's getting thrown. Patriots are a nasty physical team, and they are legit. And that kid, Drake May, is playing like an MVP. But you look around the NFL and we talk about these bad franchises. You saw last night. I mean, explain to me, how are you a top 5 draft pick? And what bothers me the most is that here's a kid that wanted Phil Simms' number and he wanted Lawrence Taylor's number. Like, who the hell are you? What the hell have you done in your career? And you're late constantly. You're late. You're late all over the place. You're late to meetings. You're disinterested. You're not engaged. You're not even playing on the field. You were drafted to go and hunt down the quarterback, and you got the quarterback running to his left, beating you out of bounds. Like, grow up. Because what's happening right now is this kid is starting to look like a bust. And by the way, the GM needs to friggin' go. I don't defend a 21-year-old, right? And say he's thrust in the spotlight. That's just excuses, man. That's just excuses. When you're a high draft pick, act like it. Act like it. I understand being immature at times. I get it. I understand being immature at times. But sometimes you got to grow up. You got to grow up. And this kid, he's just not getting it. You got the head coach in a game that could have gave the Giants a little confidence going forward. And, you don't go for it on 4th down early in the game, which I don't have a problem with. But then you turn around and what do? It's a 30-15 game when under 7-8 minutes to go, and you'd elect to go punt instead of going for it on 4th down, from your own 27. You got to build something. You're going to give the ball back to the Patriots, and what are they going to do? Go 10, 12 plays, which they did, and then you're going to turn the ball over again? It makes absolutely no sense. It really does. It makes absolutely no sense, and it's just laughable at this point. They're a bad football team. They're 2-11. They can't score. They can't stop the run. They can't play run defense. They've got all these injuries. They're banged up, and you have a franchise quarterback that you believe you can build upon, and he's got to be smarter. Yes, no doubt, but I'm not going to just pigeonhole one play last night. It's utterly ridiculous. You're only talking about it because he got concussed. That's all. And then you got to listen to the GM speak today, who basically everything out of his mouth was an excuse. Everything out of his mouth. I mean, my God, this guy's talking about they're 2-11 because of the contract they gave Daniel Jones. Can somebody check this just jackass at the door, please? Joe Schoen basically, on the record, admitted that Daniel Jones proved him wrong to earn a $160 million deal if you go back March of 2023. He was happy to give him the deal. Talk about your draft picks. Neil Hyatt, why is he still on the roster? If you're a GM in the NFL and you're on borrowed time and you have bad draft picks, cut them, because all that's doing is adding insult to injury. It's just putting more gasoline on the fire with the fan base to show that you're not holding anyone accountable. You're not holding yourself accountable. If they're not going to be productive, if they're not going to play, if they're not going to get snaps and reps, why are they on the roster? The longer you keep them there, all it's going to do is sit and marinate with the fan base. I can't believe this guy drafted X, Y, and Z. It's just bad. It's beyond bad. I mean, he just talks out of his ass. He does. Whether he's smug, clueless, delusional, or all the above, get him out of here. Like, get him out of here. I said this last year. Why are you bringing back the head coach? Why are you bringing back the GM when they're going to be lame ducks? And I told you in August, this team wasn't going to win a lot of football games. And the nauseating, annoying part is that they have a little bit of talent. Look across the sidelines last night. The New England Patriots made a grave mistake hiring Gerard Mayo after Belichick. It was a disaster. They drafted poorly. And then you're bringing a guy that knows how to win. That was basically a cast-off in Tennessee, but played in the NFL, won Super Bowls, understand the Patriot way. You take a shot on a quarterback that some people said was a stretch, and now the kid is playing like an MVP. You can turn it around fast in the NFL. You can turn it around fast in the NFL. But when I listen to a GM and a head coach and a GM who comes late to his own press conference, basically sugarcoat stuff and give you the use salesman, the snake oil salesman answers, get him out of here. Get him out of here. He does not deserve to be GM. He has not earned that right. Like, what is this so hard? Why is this even a debate? Why is this even a conversation? Like, cut ties with him. Cut ties with him. I mean, you're talking about a head coach last night, an interim head coach. It's a 27-7 game with a buck 13 to go in the second quarter. You got 4th and 1 on your 35, and you run the offense onto the field. You try to draw them off sides, then you punt. Now, you want to sit there and say, right call, because it was going to be a debacle, and you don't want to get blown out and really embarrassed. But then late in the game, you're down 2 scores. You're 2-10. 2-10. Like, at least give yourself a shot. Do something positive. You couldn't do that last night. Special teams, disaster. Run defense, disaster. Secondary, disaster. Offense, disaster. I mean, it's horrible. If anything, you walk away last night, a Giants fan, say, thank frigging God, Mike Kafka's not going to be that coach next year. But I certainly don't want this current GM making a decision. It's bad. It's bad. Got a lot of comments coming in, 16 past the 4 o'clock hour. This is the NFL. You got really good teams and really piss poor teams, and everyone else in between is mediocre. It's parity at its best. And what did we see last night? The Patriots are legit. Like, who would have thunk this for a minute? Can you envision Chicago and Seattle playing the NFC Championship? I can. Can you envision New England and Denver playing in the AFC Championship? I can. I mean, those teams are all trending up. They're all trending up. They can run the football, they play defense, and their quarterbacks are playing at high levels. Now, you want to argue Bo Nix. Okay, I get it. But the defense, my point is, you can run the football. Their defense is carrying them. No one had those 4 teams, like, as you're trying to take a step back, right? Kevin, Tom, Joe, G, I'll get to you. New phones, who this? Actually, He 12 Man, Heisman, a.k.a. Vince, a.k.a. Steeler Nation, a.k.a. DeVal. We got to start with Jackson Dart being the dumbest quarterback to ever play in the league. That's a little harsh. I played this way my whole life. Get a friggin' clue, bro. I already had one concussion. But again, what do you want the kid to say? Come on, Q, don't go down with the ship. He's got to be smarter and get out of bounds. It's a split second. That's what we're doing. He's going for the first down marker. If you want to sit there and say he's got to be smarter at times, that's fine. But you're looking at last night, and don't tell me it's not friggin' debatable. It is debatable. Seriously, it is debatable. Because we're only talking about it because he's coming back off a concussion. If this kid's playing the last several games and got cracked, we're not having this conversation. Yeah, is it troublesome? Is it worrisome? Absolutely, because he's your franchise quarterback. I wonder how Bronco fan felt last night looking at the Pats, right? Got to be smarter and get out of bounds. It's not debatable. It's not about that. It is not about that. It was ad nauseum with Aikman and Buck. I mean, Aikman, you played the quarterback position. You didn't take hits. You didn't try to stretch it a yard or two. Again, I'm watching the play over and over. It's a bang, bang, split second. Boom. Bang, bang, split second. And listen, that's a clean shot, man. Now, can I sit there and say a couple times the Pats led with their head on a couple plays? Yeah, I mean, the kickoff return for Olszewski and the special teamers just gunned at him. I mean, you listen to McCauley talk about that's not a flag. That should be a flag. But the Patriots, they showed you, if you didn't watch them all season long and you watched them last night against a bad football team, what did they do? They took them behind the woodshed. They showed the physicality because they are in the mold of their head coach. They are in the mold of their head coach. And you look around the NFL and some of these teams that are in flux, interim head coaches, looking for another head coach, they're about to fire a head coach. They have no identity. They have no identity. The Giants losing last night, it's like puts them in that category of the friggin' Jets. I mean, think about this number for the Giant fans saying, I'm being way overboard. They've lost 117 times since 2015. Think about that. The Giants are 59, 117, and 1 since 2015. These are my Giants, the Giants I grew up with, the Giants that I watched win many a playoff game, Super Bowls, go to NFC championships, have epic runs. 117 losses. Jets, Giants, Browns. What do they all have in common, those franchises? They're all laughing stocks. They're all run piss poor. That's not debatable. But this is where we're at. And it's unfortunate because, again, you're not asking much, man. You are not asking much. Just give me a competitive product. I'm trying to, Michael. They don't want to, they don't want to listen. They don't want to listen. And I'm not going to debate or argue. The kid took a hit. I'm not going to go back and forth. I see guys tweeting in right now. I'm not going to waste my time today with this nonsense. I get it. Tua took the hits. I get it. Aikman took the hits. I get it. Quarterbacks get concussed. Quarterbacks can be reckless. Quarterbacks can be careless. The kid has to play smarter. All I'm saying is everything was under a microscope last night. You want to stick it in the vacuum, so be it, because this kid missed 2 other games prior to because he was concussed. But that's also because the clown of a head coach was designing RPO runs for him. So it's like, come on. Kid's going to be a player, and they need weapons. But the Pats showed me last night that you can turn around quickly in the NFL. Chicago has shown me you can turn around quickly in the NFL. Denver has shown me you can turn around quickly in the NFL. And Drake May, I mean, we're talking about Matthew Stafford as MVP. I think Drake May now, even if you look at the odds, I would say forget about the odds for a moment. I think this kid right now, if they get the top seed in the AFC, and let's just say, argument's sake, and again, right away, I see some of you guys, I'm going to get to the comments about the Pats schedule and who they played. You can't fault them for playing who's on their schedule. You can't. And I think the reason we were looking at Giants as a live dog because the consensus was, well, the Pats really haven't played anyone. And maybe the Giants can kind of trip them up. Now, they beat the Bills on the road earlier in the season. Is this the same type of Bills team we saw in, what was it, week 4, week 5? I don't know. Dolphins won a couple games. They did beat the Dolphins on the road earlier in the season. They did beat the Panthers, bridge playoff team, earlier in the season. So I'm not suggesting they also beat the Buccaneers. So you sit there and say the Patriots, who have they beaten? I gave you a couple good teams, did I not? So they're going to get tested. They got the Bills coming up, the Ravens coming up. If they get through those 2 games, and even if they go 2-2, 3-1 at best, who bookmarked the Patriots to win 13 games this season? They're a really good football team. And maybe because they're so young, they get bounced in a divisional round, right? It's an issue if you think he can be your quarterback in the next 10 years. 2 is an example. We need of concussions on a quarterback. No, he got concussed a lot. It's a fair point you bring up. All I'm saying is we're only looking at it last night because the kid got basically hammered across the field. That's all. That's all. If he slid late and it was helmet to helmet, then you guys would sit there and say he didn't slide early enough. If he gets out of bounds and he still gets hit, he didn't get out of bounds early enough. Like, I like the kid's style play. It worries me, yes. But I'm not going to sit here and that last night was the least of my concerns. Having a player like Abdul Carter, who again, you burn a very high draft pick on, and the kid's not even seeing the field. That's alarming. You get a 22-year-old that turns around and says, "Oh, I want Sims's number 11 because Parsons wore it in Penn State. Oh, hey, LT, can I get number 56?" Like, who the hell is this kid? He hasn't even had a cup of coffee in the NFL. Like, make a play. Be disruptive. Oh, wait, I got a friggin' idea. Show up on time to meetings. Is that so hard to do? I mean, it just I just can't. I can't. And here's the other reason for people that, you know, were a Brian Daboll supporter, which was not me. Now you start to get a sense of why they also fired him, because he never held players accountable. Or it was like yeah, we're going to stick you to the side and punish you a little bit. Kind of a wink, wink. Kevin C chimes in, Q, did you listen to Shane's presser? He absolutely sounds smug and delusional. I think he knows he's dead man walking. That's Kevin in North Jersey. G-Man 6 chiming in, Q, excellent start to the show. Love the opening monologue. Very passionate about Big Blue. It was a disgrace last night. It was an embarrassment. Special teams is horrible. You got to get rid of the special teams coach. You got to blow it up. Start over from scratch. That's a painful proposition. That is a painful proposition to do in the NFL. It's just, they're unwatchable, man. And, you guys, I joke with you, like, even with my guest, or I'll kind of clown you guys and go back and forth and say, we know the season is always over by Halloween. How can you invest in that product? It's really, really bad. All right. So, got some Giants talk, Patriots talk. Your thoughts on Drake May? I mean, do you think this kid is legit right now in the running of NFL MVP? Interesting stuff still going on with the Philadelphia Eagles. I want to get into that. NFC East as a whole will go around the league. Are we now kind of realigning the quarterbacks that we talked about in August? Like, where are we at right now? I got a lot of Eagles fans chiming in. I guess there's some goofiness going on the airwaves. I don't listen to Philly talk, but I got some guys chiming in. And it's funny because a couple of Eagles fans actually, commented the other day about, benching Jalen Hurts, right? Benching Jalen Hurts. So, I mean, we got to get into that as well. But as I mentioned, if you look back at where we were in August talking about potential MVP candidates, we threw Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, Stafford, Goff, Herbert, Lawrence. I don't think a lot of people said Drake May. And this kid was making throws all over the place last night. I mean, he's got that look. He's got the talent. He just has that air about him. He's 23 years old, right? And here's the other thing that we talk about. Second year. It is amazing in the NFL to watch the rookie season is second year and how the game slows down for the quarterback. This kid's going to throw probably 27 to 30 touchdowns, maybe 6 or 7 picks. He's been sacked a lot, but he's showing toughness. And he just delivers the ball. I mean, he puts it in that tight window. He's going to throw over 4,000 yards. If they get the top seed regular season, number 1 seed in the AFC, which is very likely right now, to be quite honest with you, this kid's going to be right there when we're talking about MVP of the NFL. And I get it. He's not Stafford, not yet. And maybe it's the overreaction. We're a little too overzealous, right? And, the Patriots now, they're going to get spoiled for the next 10 to 15 years. Go from Brady essentially for 20 plus years and just reigning supreme in the AFC East and winning divisions and championships and Super Bowls. And now you got a franchise quarterback. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Denny Boy, Giants fan, and Tom Zerber chimes in. Q, loving the show. Caught you the first time last weekend talking a little Giants figure. I chime in on this day. You're absolutely right about the GM. This guy's absolutely delusional. By the way, wasn't he the one that gave Daniel Jones all that money? Yes. See, that annoys me. When the GM who knows he's under fire, when the GM comes out and he understands they're 2-11 and they're a piss poor franchise and he's done a horrible job of drafting, and then he has to scapegoat Daniel Jones, who's not even with the team anymore, and Daniel Jones's contract, they basically decline that fifth-year option, and then he turns around and he gives him $160 million. Like, come on, man. That's just, it baffles me. It baffles me. You can't go back in time. You cannot unring the bell. You can't. You can't. And now Jones is having success in Indianapolis. And I'm telling you, you watch the Hard Knocks and the way the organization carried themselves and the camera and playing. It was just a bad look. And now you're seeing it with these draft picks, the Hyatts, the Neals. I mean, I don't need to. You're going to throw what? A backup tight end to me? A backup linebacker? The comment that bothered me the most, and by the way, you got a flex situation going on December 20th, week 16. Packers, Packers and the Bears have been moved into that 8:20 slot. So I think the Birdies, the Beagles, were supposed to play Sunday Night Football. Now, Eagles Commanders played, they're going to play at 5 p.m. So mark the calendar right there. Mark the calendar. December 20th, Green Bay and Chicago. You might have NFC North on the line, right? 8:20 start time. And I just want to check something right here, see if they updated it scheduling wise. So that was probably it looked like a 1:00 game for the Eagles. Now it's going to be a 5:00. Now that's going to be a 5:00. So that's 12:20. So yeah, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get the flex and the more, I guess you can say, desirable game. But my point is, going back to Joe Schoen for a moment. Listen, you, if you're not doing a good job, I like to use analogies on the air, right? I'm trying to draw comp. Okay. So let's just say you're in a relationship and you've been with your significant other for a long time, but you also, you're not giving her the best. You're not giving that person the best. You're not making time for them. You're not treating them properly. You're not doing nice things for them. You're not being respectful. Eventually they're going to turn around. They're smart enough. They're going to be like, enough of this shit. I'm not going to put up with this anymore. And then when, they decide to leave, or vice versa, you decide to leave, the person wants to know why, or you want to know, why are you doing this? Like, look in the mirror, hold yourself accountable, be accountable for your actions in life. I don't care what level, what social scale. I don't care how much you make, what job you do. I don't care if it's sweeping the floor outside. I don't care if you're a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, a cop, a cook, dishwasher, trashman, sports talk show host, whatever. Hold yourself accountable. Like, it's okay to sit there and say, I'm wrong, made a mistake. That's a bad draft pick. That's a bad decision. I should have handled it a different way. When you have guys that are just, you know that the shrapnel is coming and the bullets are flying, there's two ways to handle it. You either take it like a friggin' man, or you scapegoat. And I would have more respect for a guy like Joe Schoen to sit there and say, yeah, you know what? I got to be honest. If you guys want to question if I deserve to have my job, you're right. You're right. You're right. You want the truth? I've had some hits and I've had a lot of misses, and that's on me. And that's on me. Like, you're going to lose your job. There's no way that Mara, who's going through it, there's no way you can keep this man employed as the GM. But I can respect you a little more if you sat up there and basically said, yeah, I get it. I know why you guys are asking the question if I deserve to be the GM moving forward. I've asked myself that. Now, is that really being outside, peeling back the curtain like, oh my God, does this guy take truth serum? Is this like Liar and Jim Carrey? The truth's always got to come out of his mouth. Wow, this is refreshing. You never get it. But once in a rare moment in life, you will get it. You're not going to get it here. And for that reason alone, and the fact that you're sitting there talking about a 21-year-old kid, you're giving him a free pass to be late, and then you're late for your own presser, get this clown out of here. And again, this goes with all these GMs and these head coaches we've been talking about who just have no pulse of their franchise, no pulse of their team. And I don't like this half-ass discipline nonsense. Okay, if Mike Kafka, who also knows he's not going to be the head coach, if that's me, and I know I'm not going to be the head coach of the Giants, but maybe I can at least, show these guys I'm going to die with my boots on. You know what I'm doing? I'm basically deactivating Abdul Carter for the next several games. I'm sorry. I'm deactivating him. Why? Because I don't trust you. You haven't earned my trust. Like I said, talent alone, it just doesn't mean anything. You have to have character. You have to have drive. You have to have passion. You got to show up. You got to be engaged. This is not 30 years ago, man. You're not Lawrence Taylor. Parcells is not making concessions. You want to hang out and play cards and drink beer, get hungover, go out, and then come on a Sunday. Well, guess what? If you have 4.5 sacks, we don't have a problem with that. But you've been non-existent, and you're not a gamer. You're just not, man. And right now, I'm not trying to pick on this kid, and I get he's 21, but enough is enough. Like we're so that's not a kid, man. That's not a kid. We sit there and we talk about these players. Well, they got to mature. Yeah, that's fine. There's certain levels of it, right? Like you listen to a kid like Sanders. Okay, I'm not going to question that kid's work ethic because by all accounts, he was doing what he needed to do. Whether he's good or not is yet to be seen. But people don't like his answers. You look at a kid like Carter, the talent is there, but we haven't seen it. And plus, you're late. You're not taking your craft serious. So for me, you don't deserve to wear that uniform. So I'm going to deactivate your ass for the next couple games. It's a hard lesson to learn, man, but deal with it. But Kafka's not going to do that because he's warped and delusional thinking he's got a shot at this job. He doesn't. He just doesn't. He doesn't. It's a fact. It's an ugly fact, but that's just the bottom line. And we see a lot of that in the NFL. Heard your boy was looking on the squigglies during a meeting. That's why he didn't play the series. I mean, that's, you believe everything on social media. You're probably the same group of fans that want to see Tanner McGee and Jalen Hurts benched. Feel another hater day versus UQ. Speak the truth. It's okay, Michael. Like I said, I take it, man. I take the shrapnel. Bunker never holds themselves accountable. Yeah, don't even get me started on the Bunker boys. Listen, you won't hear from them or their de facto friggin' joke of a spokesperson. You won't hear from them until Tuesday. They play Monday night. And we might not even hear from them on Tuesday. Because if they lose on Monday night, Eagles, they got their own, they got their own problems. And I'm telling you, and let me just say this too. Those kids, what would they do? They egged Patullo's house. What are we doing? Like, there's no place for that. Seriously, you're gonna vandalize this man's house after a friggin' loss? I mean, what a bunch of friggin' punks. Seriously. What a bunch of punks. You're going to trash the guy's house? You're going to egg the guy's house? You're going to spit on whatever the hell you did, vandalize the house? I mean, listen, you can boo. You can go on social media. You can say, fire the guy, get the microphone, go in mom and dad's basement and yap, yap, yap. Go ahead. Take shots at the guy, but you don't need to do that. You don't need to vandalize. You don't need to throw stuff at this guy's house. I mean, that's just grow up. Like, seriously, these kids need an ass beating. Sorry, but they do. They need an ass beating. Like, grow up. Yeah, their offense has struggled. We know that. And it's been a hard watch. And we've documented it and we've highlighted it. And there's so many issues right now for the Philadelphia Eagles. A boatload of issues. From the running back to the offensive line to the wide receiver to the quarterback, who I'm going to get into later on, to the head coach, who refuses to strip the offensive coordinator of his play calling duties for whatever reason. But you don't need to take it out on this man's property. That, like, There are some things that are off limit. Homes, families, off limits. You want to come at somebody, you want to come at me, you want to sit there and be the tough guy, keyboard work that take your shots, right? But you don't do that. You don't go to somebody's house. I don't even know how the hell they found the man's house. I don't even want to know if it was leaked the address. But you just don't do that. And I'll tell you right now, not only arrest them, but don't ever allow them to go to a Philadelphia Eagles game ever again. And let's be honest and go a little old school. Like if the parents are worth their salt, I give them a little bit of an ass beating. Sorry. You don't have to contact DIFUS on me. I don't have any kids, but hey, I can tell you this. There were plenty of times. If I looked at my father crooked, I would be imprinted on the wall. So all I'm saying is like, grow up. You just, that's just, that's not good. That's not cool at all. Sounds like the same situation as Sirianni, doubling down on Patullo. Don't ask me about my whereabouts last Sunday night. I definitely was not outside Patullo's house. I should hope not. I would have a problem with that. Goes to Luca Brazzi. I would. Talking like that, I have a few questions about the robbery of Shedeur Sanders I like to ask Ghost. Yeah, that's also, again, the kid got robbed, right? In his house. I mean, what do we do? It's getting to the point, my God, you're allowed to be critical of athletes. You can have an opinion. You can voice your opinion, but you don't need to make threats. You don't need to rob them. You don't need to vandalize them. Like, calm down. Calm down, man. At the end of the day, it is just sports. We get riled up because we're fans. We have opinions. We have fun with it, but just calm down. Like, do something a little more productive with your time, right? Come on. Sarge chimes in. Q, I'm hearing the rumblings out of Pittsburgh. Tomlin might be out. Is there any chance you think Carroll's done with the Raiders? And if Tomlin gets fired, is that a landing spot? So the Tomlin conversation, and by the way, 443 on a Tuesday edition of On Q, powered by our good friend Sarge. I'm going to answer that for a moment. Got to get these reads in. Powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Don't forget, 20% off. Use the promo code BYP20 in the show notes, affiliate link. With the holidays right around the corner, you can save on your coffee, the official coffee of On Q, as well as back your play. Also played against sports, 2 locations now, 1450 Clemens Bridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey, and Mount Laurel. They still have those doorbuster sales going on. And as always, our good friends over at Three Brooks Bourbon. Let me address the Tomlin crowd and the Steelers for you. Mike Tomlin's pretty interesting. So, I have my thoughts on Tomlin. I think Tomlin is a good head coach. I never thought Mike Tomlin was a great head coach. And I feel as though if we're going to talk Mike Tomlin, right, then we also have to look at a couple other head coaches that for years had moderate success. Now, obviously, Tomlin went in a Super Bowl. What have you done for me lately? But a guy like Marvin Lewis lasted year after year after year, 500, starving Marvin. Jeff Fisher, it's a great year when you go 8-8, lasted years. Why do we act like Mike Tomlin should have a lifetime pass as head coach with the Pittsburgh Steelers? I mean, what has he done? Because every coach's shelf life, every coach in the NFL has a shelf life. The other day, we're talking about Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni, who you can argue in a 3 to 4 year span, playoffs, 2 Super Bowls, 1 Super Bowl win, more than what Tomlin's done in the past 10 plus years. But yet, we were actually talking about Sirianni. Well, if they don't get it together, if they implode, if it's 2023 all over again, even though he won a Super Bowl, this can be Doug Peterson. He's going to be out of a job. But why don't we hold Mike Tomlin to that same standard? Again, very, good coach, not great coach. And it's one of the reasons that the fan base is going nuts. there's unrest in Pittsburgh right now. There's unrest, and you've opened this can of worms when you decided to take a flyer on Aaron Rodgers, because ultimately Aaron Rodgers, when things go awry, when things go stray, when things go sideways for Aaron Rodgers over the last several years, at this point of his career, Aaron Rodgers is, I want to take my football and I want to get off the sandbox and go home. Translation, I'm going to start calling out my teammates because I'm Aaron friggin' Rodgers. You're not Aaron friggin' Rodgers anymore. You're just Aaron Rodgers. You're not A-Rod. You're Aaron Rodgers. Right now, you are a veteran at best, almost like a journeyman quarterback. You're not the guy you once were. You're just not. Like, everyone knows it. You're a shell of yourself. So now you've got your future. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Future Hall of Fame quarterback, but a shell of himself, veteran quarterback, kind of bounced around over the last couple seasons. Here we go. Green Bay, the Jets, now Pittsburgh starts calling out players, talking about the film session, talking about showing up, talking about when I check to a route, run the right route. When there's a film session, everyone shows up. Those remarks, now follow me, those remarks are a direct reflection of the lack of leadership and accountability that Mike Tomlin is bringing to the table right now as head coach. And it's embarrassing that the Pittsburgh media did not even ask Mike Tomlin one question. I listened to presser. Not one question was asked. He didn't get a single question about Rodgers. Why? Because he's Aaron Rodgers? Because he's Aaron Rodgers? That tells me quarterback, head coach, not on the same page. It tells me that quarterback is starting to divide that locker room. It tells me that coach has one foot out the door, where the message is not resonating. The message is just not resonating. That's it. And when that happens, it's time, man. It's time. It's time. Listen, good coach, good head coach, but not great head coach. I mean, sorry. He's just not. And I think, as we talked about this in August, we talked about some of these coaches on the hot seat. I mentioned Tomlin several times, to the chagrin of Steelers Nation. Good head coach, but not great head coach. And the body of work tells you that, and I believe he's on borrowed time. Now, to answer Sarge's question, or to address his comment, there's also some issues going on with Vegas and the Raiders, because everyone knows, with the whole Chip Kelly debacle and disaster. Now, you get rid of him. Does Pete Carroll now go to ownership or have a conversation with Tom Brady? I want more power and control with the team. I don't think that's going to happen. Brady wants to oversee the day-to-day. He does. So methinks Pete Carroll is one and done. I think after this season, Pete Carroll is going to retire, and that's going to be it. He has buyer's remorse. I tried. The energy is zapped. I'm not going to do it anymore. I don't have the pieces. I don't have the tools. I don't have the talent. And I certainly don't have the quarterback. Would a guy like Tomlin want to take on that spot? I don't believe so. It's okay. Even if one of these guys or two of these guys or multiple head coaches get fired, and you step aside for a year and go the TV route. And then you wait to see the next hiring process. Because in the NFL, what do we know? Like, what's the one truism with the NFL? Besides, we talk about parity. They retread these head coaches all the time. All the time. Tomlin has survived way worse than a diva quarterback. He isn't going anywhere. I don't believe that to be true. I don't. I really don't. What makes you say that? It's not. Listen, coaches build up equity. They build up equity. That's all it is. But it's the NFL. If Doug Peterson wins a Super Bowl and a year plus later, 2 years later, he's fired, why can't Mike Tomlin get fired? Why? Because he's won 190 games? He's not a winning head coach in the playoffs. He's 8-11 in the playoffs. Now, you want to talk about the Super Bowl victory? Fine. But you're talking about one of the, you know, original franchises, a legendary franchise with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he had a 3 to 4 year little window and run, but Mike Tomlin won a Super Bowl in year number two. Year number two. So, yeah, you win 10, 11 games, but then he's getting bounced in the playoffs left and right. That doesn't sit well. It just doesn't. It does not sit well. So there is a shelf life involved, man. And that's what I'm saying. Like some of these coaches I brought up, they didn't even have the resume that Tomlin, when you're talking about these wins and these losses. But we need to hold him to the same standard we were holding Marvin Lewis and Jeff Fisher, because these guys were winning games and Mr. 500 year in and year out. And everyone was like, get rid of him, get rid of him, get rid of him, get rid of him. Well, they finally got rid of him. Like Jeff Fisher coached a long time in Tennessee, and then obviously, St. Louis for a couple years. He also won 173 games. And same thing, 5-6 in the playoffs. Had an opportunity to win the Super Bowl. Hello, Mike Jones, native of Philly, making the tackle. And that's all she wrote. So they were there. They had an opportunity. I don't know if you look at a guy like Fisher, but that Super Bowl was 99. He went on to coach another, 18 seasons? And yet, we still sat there and say he's a 500 guy. Marvin Lewis, all the years, you're 500, you're 500. Tomlin is a good head coach. He's not a great head coach. He's just not. Now, do I want him? Would I look at Tomlin as a Giants head coach? I mean, it's Michael asked if Tomlin's out in Pittsburgh. You got to remember one thing: the Rooney family, the Mara family, right? Hence Rooney Mara. I mean, it's the Pittsburgh and the Giants, right? They're the matriarchs of the NFL. No, honestly, I want it. The more I thought about it, what's going on, man? I want it. And it's probably going to make people cringe, but I would be more inclined to hire Mike McCarthy, to be quite honest with you. If we're really being honest, which we are on the air, I would be more inclined to hire Mike McCarthy. I heard Matt Nagy's name being tossed around. Go to the Titans. When Mike Grable's name was being tossed around, the Giants should have jumped in. But you already knew, wink, wink, he was going to New England. They need Cleveland, the Titans, the Jets, the Raiders, the Giants, the Saints, Atlanta, maybe Arizona. They all need head coaches. Now, we can keep chiseling away at that for a moment. You got to look at some of those situations. Out of those teams that I mentioned, who do we believe has a franchise or franchise quarterbacks? Out of those teams right now, Jets don't have a franchise quarterback. Cleveland doesn't have a franchise quarterback. Tennessee, this kid was put in a real bad spot. The offensive line stinks, and the head coach got fired 4 or 5 games in, so he's struggling. The Raiders don't have a franchise quarterback. That's 3. Atlanta doesn't have a franchise quarterback. That's 4. The Saints don't have a franchise quarterback. And I'm sorry, Penix is always injured. You can't count on this kid. Atlanta doesn't have a franchise quarterback. But the Giants seem to have a franchise quarterback. So if I'm a head coach and I'm kind of being recirculated in the NFL and I've had success and I've worked with young quarterbacks, what would be the landing spot? It would probably most likely, logic would say, the Giants. That would be an appealing spot because you have some weapons. You're going to get Neighbors back and Scadaboo and Johnson. Offensive line has played well. Jackson Dart looks the part. And it's the New York Giants. And it's a major market in New York, right? The question is, who's going to be the GM? See, that's why last year I said you can't bring back the head coach and you can't bring back the GM. Because if I'm a Mike McCarthy or if I'm Joe Schmo or Bob Johnson or whatever, and I'm looking at the Giants job and the Giants are interested in me, I want to know right now, is this clown going to be the GM? Because what if, you're gonna fire the GM, hire a GM, then do the head coach. But you're not gonna have Joe Schoen be the GM and you bring in a head coach, and then all of a sudden you get rid of Joe Schoen in February with the draft in April. That makes no sense. So, from a market standpoint, standpoint, franchise quarterback standpoint, the Giants are a fit. But then you got to look at the other mess. Now you got to look at all these other franchises I just mentioned. Is Aaron Glenn going to be one and done with the New York Jets? Does he get a little wiggle room? Is there some leverage there? Stefanski and Barry. I honestly, the more I dive into that Cleveland situation, I really don't know what the Browns are going to do. Because there's so many, the all 22 and the talking heads and the former quarterbacks are saying Sanders is not it. Now, again, I'm reiterating, I'm conveying what they're saying. They're saying his lack of reads, progressions, some of these throws, some of these misses are that of a fourth, fifth round draft pick. Now, do I think that's being overly critical? I didn't play in the NFL. I didn't play the quarterback position. I go by the eye test. But I would like to see this kid finish out the season and get reps. And then you make that decision. My gut is starting to tell me they are going to draft a quarterback. My gut tells me that if Stefanski and Barry stay, Shedeur Sanders will not be the quarterback. He will not be on this roster next season. I don't believe it. And whether it's fair or foul, it's not my decision to say. He's a young quarterback. He's a green quarterback. There could be a fit for him in the NFL, of course. Sometimes you do need to take a young quarterback, groom him a little bit. The maturation process. Give him an offseason. Put him in a good spot where he can thrive. I don't know the best spot for a player like Sanders. I don't believe Gabriel is an NFL quarterback. I don't think that kid from Minnesota, the backup, is an NFL quarterback. And I certainly have reservations about J.J. McCarthy as well. Now, I don't know if it's misevaluation of talent, if we're throwing him into the fire, we're throwing him into the deep end too soon, but some of these guys can't play. So to Mike in Ohio already chiming in, asking me, the state of the Browns, as he asks every week, and my answer doesn't change, your guess is as good as mine. Or do you go the bridge route? And then, see, the problem with the bridge route is you can only get away with a bridge quarterback for a year or two. Because that's why they're a bridge quarterback. Like, you're eventually going to have to say to yourself, I need to go in a different direction. Or we need to draft a quarterback. All right, 5 o'clock straight up, 60 to book, 60 to play with on a Tuesday. A lot of comments coming in. We'll switch gears a little bit, talk a little Eagles MVP conversation. Who do you guys have right now for your MVP in the NFL? And also, you watched the Denver Broncos get that overtime win. You watched the Patriots dismantle the Giants. You saw Seattle win. You saw Chicago go into Philly on the road and maul the Eagles. Do we see a scenario? Seattle, Chicago, NFC Championship. Denver, New England, AFC Championship. So we'll kind of rehash what we talked about in August earlier in the season and see if we can make sense of it. Keep it locked in. 5 o'clock straight up. This is On Cue. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We are powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Get ready with tea, Three Brooks Bourbon, and of course, our very good friends at Play It Again Sports. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. All right, 5 o'clock hour, 5 o'clock straight up on the 2nd of December, 2025. Hope everyone's having a good Tuesday. Did you see? Let me just pull it up for a minute. I think Darius Slay did he not get released? I guess there was some talk. Can Detroit use him? Can maybe the Philadelphia Eagles lose him? Now, Tom in Summers Point chimes in. Q. I'm not even going to go the route of what they're talking about on Philadelphia radio today. It's absolutely laugh out loud. It's unthinkable to think that they should bench Jalen Hurts. I got some texts. So my guy Jonathan Marshall said in so many words. I guess that was the theme today. I don't listen because I think it's clown talk. I think it's romper room radio. But Johnson said Raiders played themselves with a retread quarterback. Steelers also pride themselves on not changing coaches often. That has helped stay grounded. And then Jovan was telling me, I guess poll questions are out there. If you're an Eagles fan, to paraphrase, have you thought about what Tanner McKee would look like in the offense? I mean, is that is Jalen Hurts the most misunderstood quarterback in the NFL? Now, he's got to play better. He's got to play better. But man, like, has there ever, name it, like, if we're trying to find a comparable quarterback right now that has been consistent, that has won, that puts up numbers, like, who would, compare, what's the comp to Jalen Hurts? Because I still believe when it's all said and done this season, there's going to be a moment late in the season, game on the line. Maybe Dallas pushes the Eagles for the NFC East title. Maybe this is a wild card spot, divisional round. There's going to be a series, a moment during the course of the season, especially in the fourth quarter, where Jalen Hurts is going to have to make a play. He is going to have to make a play. He's going to have to either scramble, put the ball through that tight window, drop back, take a shot, hang in the pocket. He's going to have to make a play. And with that means he's going to have to elevate his teammates. Matty Ice chimes in. You know I'm a diehard Giants fan. When Joe Schoen basically said the best player on your team does not have to be your leader, I literally spit out my coffee. Not fresh roasted, Q. Laugh out loud. Well, you have to have the fresh roasted. Yeah, that's a bad comment to say. That's an embarrassing comment. Michael chimes in. Eagles might have the dumbest franchise in history to make that switch. Might be the dumbest franchise in history to make that switch. I don't know what implores someone. Why even have that conversation? I've had people ask me. I know I have family members that are Eagles fans that think this kid is better than Jalen Hurts. And sometimes, and I would never call him stupid. I would debate him a little bit. I'm like, what is it that you're not feeling, you're not liking from Jalen Hurts? He's got to play better. There's no question about it. But didn't he just go and win a Super Bowl for you? Wasn't he the Super Bowl MVP? Like, does that not carry any type of clout with the fan base? Or are we just trolling now? Is that what we're doing for clicks? We're trying to come up with scenarios where Jalen Hurts should be benched. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I can give you 10 quarterbacks right now in the NFL that I would say bench them before Jalen Hurts. I can probably give you 5 or 6. Murray, I know he's hurt, but I would have benched him. Tua, benched him. Russell Wilson got benched. Justin Fields got benched. I don't get it. I don't know what the fan base is looking for sometimes. You got a franchise quarterback. Oh, apparently I rubbed people the wrong way yesterday. This is great. I gotta read some of these off. So I posted when we were talking about the Lane, not to change subjects, the Lane Kiffin comments yesterday. And you guys will get a kick out of it. It's almost like, reading the hate mail that they do on the Tonight Show and all these shows. So let me get to some of these comments real quick. We all need a good laugh. Let me pull them up here. Let's see. We got good comments. We got good comments. Hold on. So I posted yesterday, or I actually posted today. I thought Lane Kiffin basically hung out Old Miss to dry. I really did. So here are some of the comments, and I called him a rat too. Why they so mad? Would have been in their best interest to just let him coach. That's their fault. He's the main reason for the turnaround momentum. Old Miss is nothing without Lane. Okay. Another guy, DC says, Ole Miss self-destructed any chance they had to win anything. He's going to be able to do and talk to whoever he wants. They just got, what hurt because he took a better job. Stop your friggin' crying, clown. Okay. AA for Rooster chimes in, you are pathetic. All right, that's not bad. Hold on, I got a couple more. What do we got there? Tiger for Life chimes in, quit your little friggin' bitch crying. Oh man, I love when I post these shorts. I had issues doing it, and then I realized I got to put it on TikTok first, and then I can load it up. But TikTok's even worse. Oh my goodness! Go to Rich Q on the mic. You got to see. You got to. I mean, this is great. This is let me read some of these. Do, do, do. Change the dates. What are you talking about? Change the dates. Anyone else in the situation was so I can't take off the playoffs. Having signing day in the middle of the season is not fair to anyone. Change the rules in the calendar. Lane went for the better job. Stop your friggin' crying. Hunter chimes in. What a friggin' crybaby. Must be an old Miss fan. Not really. Pavi chimes in. This might be the most dumbest jackass take I've ever heard. Okay. Listen, I love it. I love it. Keep them coming, please. Let's get those views up, baby. I love it. I mean, you don't have to like it, and it's not bad. It's in about 1,200 right now. You don't have to like what I say. But again, don't throw eggs like they did the Eagles fans, right? Some fans and media types rather it took a certain way than actual wins. Ask Cowboys, Lions, and Vikings fans with Kirk Cousins all those years how'd that work. My man Jonathan chimes back in. Some fans forget where they've been. I remember Cobb, Hoying, Detmer, etc. Yes, yeah, yeah, and you're right. I missed. Yeah, it might look a certain way. Yeah, they. I don't know. I feel as though look, everyone loves to back up, but Hoying was not the answer, right? AJ Feely, would they cover against New England the one game when New England was like a 15-point favorite? Detmer, poor Detmer, wobbling around like a fish when he broke his arm. And then Kevin Cobb came in when Donovan got benched, and his career lasted, a handful of games because he got concussed. He was never a good quarterback, right? The rat comment on Kiffin might have put his supporters over the top. You know what? I think that's exactly what it is. And the funny thing is, I actually dubbed it Lane Kiffin is a rat. Somebody said, just looking at you, I want to punch your face. I feel like what was the movie? Oh my god, that's too funny. What was the movie when uh was it Step Brothers? Right? With the Catalina wine mixer when he goes pow pow. And he goes, I really want to just punch your face. uh Hold on, Rebel Ron actually chimed in on the post as well. My goodness, I can't stand that smug look on your face. Who the hell is this guy? Oh my goodness. Keep them rolling. Yeah, for some reason, Michael, for some reason, the when we throw out the rat comment, like when we talk about fan bases or athletes or coaches, it rubs people the wrong way, right? Like when we talk about the bunker boys and their rat-like tendencies. When I made the analogy yesterday with the rat and then the gutter and the sewer rat. When we talk about Lane Kiffin, who is a rat? There's no bones about it. I mean, he bailed. He bailed. He absolutely bailed. And there's no way I would want him even remotely, walking over to the New York Giants. Not happening. Steelers, I saw claimed Adam Thielen. So you saw he basically wanted his release, didn't work out. Minnesota gave up a lot for him. I mean, you're talking about equity to bring over a guy that doesn't look like he has it anymore. What do we got here? Sammy Ball chimes in. Q on the Steelers. I'm a big time Steelers Nation fan. I kind of disagree. I think actually Mike Tomlin is an all time great head coach. He is the model of consistency. Yes, he won earlier in his career, but the guy, as you know, quote, has never had a losing season. Yeah, but that means nothing to me. That means absolutely nothing to me. Look around the NFL right now. Look what's going on in the AFC. New England is 11-2. Buffalo is fighting, scratching, and clawing for a playoff spot. Miami has won a couple games. They're nipping at the heels. Then you look at the AFC North. The Steelers they were in the driver's seat. The Steelers started off the season 4-1, and everyone said they're running away because Cleveland stinks. They have no quarterback. Cincinnati loses Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson was hurt for the Ravens. So all I heard from Steeler Nation was they're going to run away with the division. They're going to shut you up. See, Tomlin's not on the hot seat. You lost to Cincinnati. You lost to the Packers. Okay, you beat Indianapolis. I'm going to give you that. But then you lost to the Chargers. You beat a bad Cincinnati team, and then you no-showed against the Bears. I mean, listen, when I say no-showed, you can't look at a game that was close like that. Physically, running the football, I'll give them their just due. I will. But Aaron Rodgers didn't play. Rudolph came in and didn't do anything. But in the fourth quarter, where was the defense? Where was the defense? Caleb Williams making plays with his legs. They were running the football all over the place. That's a mindset. And maybe no show is a strong word or phrase because they only lost by 3. But that's a game. Again, that is a game that they were up. They were up 21-7, I believe, in that game. They were up in that game. And I'll have to double check. I believe they were up in that game. They were up 21-14 in that game, heading into the third quarter. They were up by 7 heading into the third quarter. And then what did we see from them? Their last time out. I just don't think they're a very good football team. Maybe I should have reserved a no-show for the game against Buffalo. I think that's a little more fair because they did not show up in that game. 26-7. 26-7. And I told you, get James Cook over 80-something yards. Pittsburgh, you can run on the Steelers. Their run defense stinks. Buffalo ran for $150. So this whole Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season, the rat comment hits deep. It does. It rubs people the wrong way. You ever want to shut somebody up? You just basically say you're a rat. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. That'll rub them the wrong way. All right, so let's kind of reinvestigate what we were talking about with these quarterbacks. Oh, let me squeeze the man in here. Good for him showing up on a Tuesday. Seems like there's a secondary bunker in honor of Lane. What a bunch of sensitive Sallys. I thought it was Susie's, but you're right. Yeah, I mean, I got 3 of them that said they want to punch my face. And I'm thinking about the Catalina wine mixer. Pam, pam, pop, pop. Are you still going to punch my face? I am. That was a great movie, by the way. Very good movie. You're never supposed to wake anyone if they're sleepwalking. Boats and hose. All right. Let me pull up a couple more comments in here. Mark in Wallingford chimes in. Q, I'm going to read the room. I wanted to talk a little hot stove baseball, but I'll stick with the Philadelphia Eagles. Ha, ha, ha. Do you really think there's a chance they would ever consider benching Jalen Hurts? No, no, not at all. No. And I think, I think what's happening now is you got a team that has lost two straight. You have a team that, the quarterback did not play particularly well at home in a game they should have won. The run defense let them down. The offensive play calling let them down. The head coach let them down. The running back let them down. The quarterback did not make the throw that he's paid to make. That is, that's a topic of conversation. Like when we go around the NFL and we look at some of these quarterbacks, and if I'm supposed to believe you're a franchise quarterback, then there are certain throws you have to make. You have to make them consistently. Sure, you can have an overthrow from time to time, but for the most part, you can't, fire a 10-yard out to Devontae Smith and he's got to turn around the other way and instead of hitting him from stride. You can't miss Goddard down the seam. You can't just lob it up and expect A.J. Brown to win every 50-50 ball. More times than not, he does. So there's an element or lack thereof to Hurts' game where he doesn't always go through his progressions properly. He doesn't read the defenses properly. And sometimes he holds on to the football and he makes a poor decision, rolling out to his right, throwing across the body, rolling out to the right instead of throwing it away, try to, just thread that needle. You shouldn't be doing that at this stage of the game. You shouldn't. We're not talking about a quarterback that's in his third year, fourth year in the NFL. We're not. This is Jalen Hurts' sixth season. He's gone to 2 Super Bowls and he's won 1. So you look at the surface and say, well, hold on a second. Why are you complaining about a quarterback that's going to throw for well over 3,500 yards, 20-something odd touchdowns, plus he's going to add another 10 on the ground and probably have 3 or 4 picks? Because that's kind of what he does. Like Jalen Hurts for his career has 167 total touchdowns and 41 picks. That's a hell of a ratio. It is. But I think you guys want 20 of 28, 288, 2 touchdowns. You don't want 15 of 23 for $110. And I understand that. But again, I just think they're 8-4. And I don't foresee Jalen Hurts getting benched. I don't foresee all of a sudden the powers that be. I mean, can you imagine paying Hurts what you paid him coming off a Super Bowl win in which he outplayed Patrick Mahomes? He was the clear MVP. He backed up that contract. He's gone to 2 Super Bowls in 3 seasons. And then he has a bad skid of games, and all of a sudden we're clamoring for the backup. Why? Because we love the backup and he looks good? Come on. I mean, again, if not McKee, what changes would you make, Hugh? It's not about the changes. I think we've been pretty transparent here. I don't think even if Nick Sirianni takes over the play calling, you still have to execute when you're on the field. And we can talk about Lane Johnson being out and the Eagles 15-24 when he's not starting. We can talk about the lack of a ground game. I would give Bigsby some more touches. I would move Hurts around in the pocket a little more. I would try to get Saquon, move him around, bubble screen, don't always run off tackle. If you look at some of the plays, everyone's saying the hole is closing up right away. That's not necessarily the case. That's not 100% accurate. I don't think Saquon trusts the offensive line. Maybe he doesn't trust himself. He's not 100%. But there were runs this season where the line opened up for Saquon and he just didn't hit the hole. Now, you want to talk about wear and tear? You want to talk about not 100%, dealing with a couple of bum wheels or dealing with a groin injury or, an aggravated hammy, what have you. But there were holes in the past that once he basically gets through that second line of defense and he's gone. He's gone. his runs, if you watch him this year, he's indecisive. He's not running with confidence. He's an indecisive back, and he's getting hit from behind the line of scrimmage. Now, you can sit there and say, well, that's because the ends and the fronts are getting pressure up front and they're blowing away the guys on the offensive line. They're winning the battle in the trenches. You can talk about, well, he's lost his step. You can talk about scheme. You can talk about when they're calling these runs. And look, everyone knows in the NFL, it's the worst kept secret. If you have 3rd and 6, and let's just say you're 45 plus, meaning your own 40, 45, 45, we'll say, to the 50 to your opponent's field, the second other side of the field, the opponent's side of the 50. 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. You run the football and pick up 5 yards on 3rd and 8. You're going for it on 4th down. So when all the players stand up and they go 4-4 and they're not punting. So you got to look at pretty much every play. Okay, where was the 4th and short? Where was the 3rd and short? There's a reason they run that tush push on 4th down, because it's unstoppable with Jalen Hurts just moving the pile. But I also believe if you have an all-world back like Saquon Barkley, even 85% of them, if you can't pick up 2 yards, 3 yards on 3rd and 2 with that offensive line, guys chipping or bringing in another tight end, then where does the fault lie? Where does the fault lie? Is it the execution, lack thereof, or does it fall on the offensive coordinator to come up with something else? Point is, I don't have an answer for you, because I believe right now this offense is beyond broken. I really do. Like everyone's, A.J. Brown, he's back. Why? Because they force-fed him the football. They still lost the game. So what are we talking about? Stats or results? And you're at the point of the season, 12, 13, 14 games in, you got to figure it out. And if you haven't figured out now, what makes me believe they're going to turn? Everyone said, calm down, look at their schedule. They're going to win the East. They're going to get a bye. They're going to host a division. That's not necessarily true. It really isn't. So my whole argument or contention sometimes when we talk about the NFL and we say it's a very long season, and I'm not trying to, again, dumb it down for you guys. I'm saying this with respect. As football fans, you guys are smart enough to realize when a team is trending up, when you're like, what's the phrase that we use? Man, this team's getting hot at the right time. Man, I would not want to see these guys in the playoffs. Now, be honest. The teams that we talk about, that we highlight, can you honestly sit there as an objective Eagles fan right now at 5:23 Eastern Time on Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025, 12, 13 weeks in the season, say, quote, man, I would not want to play the Eagles in the playoffs? You're kidding yourselves if you say that with conviction and confidence, because this is not last year. This is not last year. This is not 10-1, 10-2, Saquon going nuts or winning 9, 10 games in a row. This is a completely different offense that's broken. And I don't know if it can be fixed. And that's why I've always made the case for teams like Seattle, the Rams. Hell, I'll tell you right now, I got confidence Chicago can come in Philadelphia in January and beat the Philadelphia Eagles. The way the Bears are playing, they're playing loose. They don't know any better. They're a young team. They can run the football. They can get their quarterback, and their quarterback's starting, right? The play is trending up. His numbers aren't gaudy. They're not sexy. He's not turning the football over, and he's making plays when he has to. And that's the key. That's the key. And I'm not seeing that from Jalen Hurts. There's a couple other quarterbacks. Again, we got to call for what it is. Lamar Jackson's been banged up, but he hasn't had the best season. Josh Allen has been kind of hit or miss. Now he's come on a little bit. Matthew Stafford was the MVP a week ago. Then he throws a couple picks and a pick six, and they lose against the Panthers. Now all of a sudden, everyone's like, Matthew Stafford's done. He's shot. Now, I say it exaggerating, but that's life in the NFL. And right now, again, you can't tell me that you have confidence in a team just because you saw what they did last season. It was my whole argument during the offseason with Kansas City. And I know you guys are rolling your eyes right now, but it's one of the reasons I did not like Kansas City. I felt they couldn't run the football. They were an older team, they were a banged up team, and it's ran its course. And look where Kansas City is right now. They are fighting for their playoff lives. And they had a great run. And they're having a down year. And the Eagles right now should win the East, but I don't have confidence that if they had to go on the road or hell, even host a playoff game, whether it's the wild card division run, I don't trust them in any spot right now. Now, they might go out west, little rest, and beat the Chargers, who have a banged up quarterback. They might. They might. It's not going to shock me if they win that game, but I'm also not going to be shocked if the Chargers turn around and put up 28 to 31 points against the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night. I'm not. Philly, it shows you where the odds makers, they are the opposite spectrum from where I'm at. They're looking at the Eagles. They're still the Eagles. When there's the most noise and drama and everyone wants to coach fired and players benched and run this guy out of town and fire the OC and bench the MVP quarterback, that's when teams either show you something or they don't. So here's another spot for the Eagles. On the road, West Coast, Monday night, laying 3. Because if they lose this game and their offense struggles again, you're going to start to see that spiral. I'm sorry. You're going to see it. And they might have an ugly loss to the Raiders or Washington. They might get absolutely waxed on the road against Buffalo. And maybe they salvage the division by winning Washington and then they lose in the wild card game. Like, you got to get it right now. And I don't know if stripping Kevin Patullo of his play calling is going to do that. I don't know if Sirianni's not going to budge. So it's like, okay, the insanity, right? What's the definition of insanity? I'm doing the same thing over and over and over, and I'm expecting a different result. That's exactly what Nick Sirianni's doing. And there's something to be said when you lose coordinators on both sides of the football, and they go on and they're better coordinators in a different spot, or they turn into really good head coaches, or they excel, i.e., I give you Aaron Glenn struggling because of the roster that was assembled with the Jets, but Ben Johnson thriving in Chicago because of how the roster was assembled. And he's in a good spot, and he has a franchise quarterback where Aaron Glenn doesn't. But those were 2 names everyone talked about. Great defensive coordinator, hell of an offensive coordinator. They're going to land head coaching gigs. Well, Sirianni decides, I'm going to hire my buddy, the guy in the building. I didn't even open the door. I didn't even step outside the NovaCare complex. I didn't even look outside the building to bring somebody else in. That's all on Sirianni. So if the season goes south, we can sit there and we can get on Patullo. We can get on the players. We can get on the lack of execution. It was the reluctance. It was the stubbornness of the head coach to not even think outside the box and take the play calling over. But at this point, you're not going to, Benjamin Button Saquon Barkley and make him 4 years younger. You're not going to stick him in a time machine and say, give me 2,000 yards like last season. No, they've got problems. And I believe I might have been one of the first on the air to say after 3 or 4 weeks, there's something wrong with this offense. You're correct until the Eagles prove it on the field. We are the get-right game for the opposition. Well, yeah, but the Chargers don't need that. Look, and again, not the biggest deal if you lose a game outside the conference, but all bets are off. Look, the whole goal is to get home field advantage, is it not? That's the goal. Because you get that bye, you win a divisional round, you're hosting what? A championship game. And I don't believe a lot of people, thought Chicago would be 9-3. Now, you look at the conference records, and then obviously you got to start to take into consideration head-to-head. Well, Chicago beat the Eagles. They're 6-2 in the conference. Eagles are 7-3, but they beat the Rams, even though the Rams have one more win. So Eagles can trip up here, but they can't lose the rest of the games. They can't. They can't. You don't want it to spiral out of control. You don't want to go 10-1 and then go 10-6 or 11-6, whatever it was, and then no show on the road against Tampa Bay, because that's what they did. That's what they did. We were talking about Jalen Hurts being the MVP. This was a 10-1 team. Remember they beat Buffalo in overtime? And they got their doors blown off back-to-back weeks against the 49ers in Dallas. Then they went to Seattle, and Seattle beat them late. Jalen Hurts had that ill-advised throw down the middle, Drew Lock late in that game. You remember? They beat the Giants to kind of calm the waters. Then they lost an ugly game to Arizona. And then they lost a meaningless game where Mariota started in place of Jalen Hurts. And then what happened in the postseason? They went down to Tampa and they got absolutely railroaded. And the Bucks put up 32. You don't want that to happen again, because if that happens again, then the questions during the offseason will be, why are you bringing the coordinator back? He might not even last. And what's going on with the franchise quarterback and the head coach? And it brings me back to kind of where we started. It's all about shelf life in the NFL. I'm not going to suggest a Super Bowl winning head coach is fired after one down year, but stuff trends. That's all. Stuff trends. That's it. Ray chimes in. Q, did you see how Carter dresses? He looks like a clown. Yeah, but what does that mean? Listen, guys, I don't care what these players wear. I don't. Like, I saw Josina Anderson, such a friggin' hater, has no idea why Jackson Dart wears that necklace because his sister gave it to him. Like, she is such a friggin' hater. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing. Like, go away. I don't care what you wear. What are you doing on the field? How are you conducting yourself? Are you engaged in practice? Are you paying attention during film sessions? Are you falling asleep? Are you disinterested? That's where I have a problem. And I would say this about any player. Remember we had the conversation. AJ Brown's on the sideline reading a book. Oh my God, they killed him. They killed him. He doesn't care. Well, when he goes out 10 of 132 for 2 touchdowns, no one's saying anything. Like, there's certain things, there's certain ways you need to carry yourself in professional sports. As an athlete, you're making millions of dollars. You got to show up on time, man. You got to give an honest effort. I mean, that's not really asking a lot. You have a job. If you're constantly late for your job, you're going to get warned. Hey, Rich, you do it again, we're going to have to give you a verbal. Okay, sorry. 2 days later, I do it again. We're going to have to write you up. All right, sorry. Hey, listen, we don't want to have this conversation one more time, because if we do, you're probably going to get fired. Okay, show up late. What happens? I get fired. Like, I can't blame you. Got to blame myself. And what made matters worse is you got a guy that's asking for retired, historic Hall of Fame numbers with the Giants in number 11 and 56. And he hasn't done anything. He has not done anything. Spartan Mike chimes in. Q, I'm loving your show all the time. I know there's no discipline on this team, but why just blame coaches? How do our players themselves have no self-accountability? It's a great, great comment. It's a great question. There's a lot of that goes on in the NFL, and it has to do with the culture. It does. When you start to see guys checking out, when you start to see guys that are all about them making the quote business decisions, I say it all the time. Look around the NFL. You want to talk about all these coaches that are on the hot seat. Talk to me mid-December, shitty weather, late in the season. You won 2-3 games. Your stadium is being overrun by the opposition's fan base, and you're getting blown out 35-10. Owners hate seeing that. And when that happens, head coaches lose their job. That's not even debatable. That is a fact around the NFL. It's a fact. Star chimes in. Q, who is your MVP right now? I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. I think what Stafford has done is amazing. But, last night was probably one of my first hard looks at Drake May, granted, against a bad football team. I watched New England sporadically. That kid can flat out play, man. And to do it in your second year, It's really, and they have the right coach and it's the right system. And we've seen this sometimes with these second year progressions of quarterbacks. Uh, Stafford, I think, has had an incredible season. Like I wanted the Giants to go out and trade for Matthew Stafford. I've always been Stafford's a Hall of Famer. Like I think a couple of you guys, asked me on the air. You guys were almost like debating it. Like it's a no brainer. Matthew Stafford is a Hall of Famer. He's a prolific passer. His numbers are ridiculously gaudy. You're talking about a quarterback that's thrown for over 400 touchdowns, close to 63,000 yards, and you can make a strong case. 32 touchdowns, 4 picks. 2 of them came in one game. He threw 28 touchdown passes without a pick. This is arguably, statistically, going to be the best season of his career. It's a tough decision, man, but do you look at the Patriots because of their overall record and standing in the AFC? Or do you look at the Rams and say it's pretty amazing what a 37, 38-year-old quarterback's doing as opposed to a 23-year-old? I would say back me in the corner, Stafford. I just think his numbers are off the chart. I really do. His numbers are off the chart. And where he has the edge, obviously, he's got more touchdown passes than May and more yards thrown. Now, May's an efficient quarterback, but this kid's going to be a stud the next 10 years in the NFL. A stud. Javon says, Rabel did a good job changing the culture in New England, upgraded the franchise on both sides, and got his young quarterback wagons and a running game. Yeah. Now, think, Jovan, when you and I had this conversation, what was it, a year or two ago, we were talking about, is New England going to be sneaky good? And I said their roster and their coaching staff is horrible, right? So they go from Belichick to Mayo. They bring in a Patriot who understands the Patriot way. They build up the roster. I mean, again, unless you're an NFL savant or you watch the Pats or the NFL consistently, you look at some of these weapons. I bet some of you guys didn't even know that Matt Collins was still playing in the NFL, right? They can run the football. And to Jovan's point, I was impressed. Now, I thought some of the shots were a little dirty, but this is what I was most impressed. And I'm gonna say a little jealous about the Patriots. That's a young football team, and they are nasty, man. They have an edge to them. They have an edge to them. They can run the football. They got some backs. They have obviously, Diggs. I don't even know. Did we even, did Diggs? What do you have? 1 or 2 catches last night, but they have role players that are making catches left and right. Hunter Henry and a journeyman Matt Collins and Douglas making some plays. I mean, they've got really nice complementary pieces, and they play the Patriot way, the way that in their prime when Belichick was coaching with Brady and all those guys. And on defense, they're really good. That kid Gonzalez is a player, man. They can hit, they smack you around. They have what? They have the temperament and they have the personality of their head coach. They have an identity. They have an identity. They're a physical football team. We talked about this, right? The Ravens want to be that run heavy team. Indianapolis, we want to run Taylor, open it up for Daniel Jones. Right now, New England, we're a physical team, man. We're going to beat you up. Defense, we're going to play defense first, and then we're going to let our quarterback sit there in the pocket and just do what he does best. Denver, we are a defensive minded team. Our identity is on the defensive side of the football. Hey, offense, do me a favor. Get us 17-21. We're going to do the rest. All these teams have identity. Kansas City doesn't have an identity. Kansas City, everyone was talking about Pacheco with his revenge year, and the ground game is going to be unstoppable for Kansas City. And the first 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks of the season, Patrick Mahomes was their leading rusher. You're not going to win. That's a recipe for disaster. No identity. Last season, Saquon Barkley, over 2,000 yards. What was the Eagles' identity? Last season, it was what? Running the football. They don't have an identity this season. So again, we're going to sit here and not talk about New England's strength of schedule. I started off the show talking about that. I started off the show talking about that. And I said, you can't fault them. You can't fault them for that. It's not their fault they're 11-2, but I did also bring this up. They beat Miami. That's won a couple games right now earlier in the season. No, just bear with me. They beat the Panthers, who look like they might be an outside looking in playoff team, but they're ascending. The Patriots went on the road and they did something that, you know, the Brady years used to do. They beat Buffalo. You know, they scored what, 32 against a pretty damn good Cleveland team. Defense. They beat the Bucks. I mean, to me, so what you're waiting for, Michael, this is what you're waiting for. You were watching that game last night and you were waiting for the Giants to beat the Patriots so you can come on today and you can sit there and say, what? See, I told you. Look what happens. You know, they're a fraud. I get it. I understand. And I'm not even going to say that's like mini rat like behavior. It's not. I get it. I totally understand. I get it. You were waiting for the other shoe to drop, and that's fair. But let's also be fair, flip side of that coin. When you look at your Denver Broncos objectively, and I sit there and say, well, they're not winning sexy, you would come back and say, but Q, they're 10-2. You are what your schedule is. So my point is, New England, Denver, you are what your schedule is. I mean, to me, I started the show saying that might be an AFC championship preview. You know, Denver, they beat the Titans to open up the season. They have the two bad losses, you know, late, bad calls, field goals against the Colts and the Chargers. But let's walk through it. Cincinnati stinks. Okay, you came back and you beat the Eagles on the road. I'll give you that win. The Jets stink, and you scored 13 against the Jets. The Giants were up 19. Do we even need to rehash? Dallas was a nice win. On the road against the Texans, now we're seeing the Texans, the way their defense is, nice win. You only scored 10 against the Raiders. You beat Kansas City, who I told you was pretty much cooked. You beat Washington in overtime, and you're a failed 2-point conversion away from losing that game. Now, I got to be fair. I have to be objective. I have to. Yes, you beat a very depleted New York Giants team at home. I get what you're saying. Like you want to find flaws in these teams, right? And typically when we start worrying about another team, it's because we're worried about seeing them in the playoffs. Like for my money right now, I don't care about Buffalo, Kansas City. Give me Denver and the Patriots in the AFC Championship. Seriously, let me see that defense. I mean, you're talking about Denver's defense against a second-year quarterback. You're talking about Bo Nix against New England that can play defense, move the football a little bit. You got two young quarterbacks. I mean, I'll take that. I don't need to see Buffalo and Kansas City again. Been there, done that. I've seen that movie a couple times. I'm bored. Give me my popcorn. Let's do something else. Been going through the drive-in movie for years. Let's switch it up a little bit. Give credit to New England. That's what you're supposed to do to bad team. Correct. Beat them up. 100%. 100%. I don't think they're a fraud. I just think Denver's schedule was significantly harder. But that may be the case. Okay? That might be the case. But you just gotta step back a minute. You have to appreciate, I think, respectively, what both teams are doing. Because again, I'm going to be respectful here. Even a diehard Broncos fan can see that the defense is masking the deficiencies of the offense. And that's okay. You win championships with defense. I mean, I think I heard the stat the other day that my 86 Giants, who were 14-2, didn't have a very good offense. I know that. They didn't. They got hot when they needed to late in the season in the playoffs. But obviously, that was a team that was predicated on what? Running the football and defense. That's what Denver's going to have to do. I want to see Bo Nix in that big spot come playoff time. Now, do I think Denver can be a one and done? Do I think New England can be a one and done? I do, because they're still young quarterbacks and we are prisoners of the moment. But I think it's great that those two franchises have played really good football. It's good when Denver and New England are good football teams. It's good when Chicago is a good football team. It's good for the NFL when the Giants are good, to be quite honest with you. And it's unfortunate they haven't been. But these two teams we're talking about, and I mentioned Seattle and Chicago, it's not going to shock me if these teams are playing in the championship games respectively. Madman doesn't feel that way. That being said, I wouldn't be shocked if New England loses first game in the playoffs. Could be. Could be. Denver's defense is absurd. They're fantastic. Denver's defense is fantastic. That's why I think that would be a hell of an AFC championship game. KC at New England game. Who you taking? Right now, regular season, I mean, playoff, Patrick Mahomes is going to have to go on the road. You still got Andy Reid, you still got Travis Kelce, you got Patrick Mahomes. That's a dicey game you're playing. All I can say is this, and I'm going to answer that. I think Kansas City's time is done. I think this run is over. And quite frankly, if we're talking about how these teams are playing right now, I would take New England. Now, you might say I'm crazy. I'm a fool. I'm only saying it because of my predictions that KC wasn't going to win the West, but they're a very flawed team. And I think the Patriots are a physical team, a younger team. Uh, I think they don't know any better, and that can be a scary team. Now, I know what you're going to combat with me. Kansas City has been there. They've done it. Wall to wall Hall of Famers, Mahomes, Kelsey. I understand all that. Jones, Andy Reid. I get it. I get it. But I'm gonna ride it out with the young gunslinger. And I'll tell you something else. If you stuck Kansas City and Denver, I got news for you, my friend. I would tell you Denver. I would tell you Denver. Denver won their last Super Bowl based on defense. They did because Peyton Manning had a noodle arm. They didn't need him to do anything. But I think it's different. This is kind of different. I mentioned Jalen Hurts. So remember, there's always a spot in a playoff game. A late season meaningful football game, young quarterback, they're going to get tested. Bo Nix might be down 17-3, like that. Drake May maybe has a quick pick six, and they're down 10-3 going into the half or late in the third. You got to see how they respond. Like, to me, they're good quarterbacks. They're ascending quarterbacks. Drake May is a very good quarterback. He's an MVP. Bo Nix is not there yet. But I do like Bo Nix. I like his physicality. I like his traits. I like to see him give him a little more confidence. Some throws he's got to make, right? But like you said, you can mask that with a really good defense. You can mask a bad secondary by having a pass rush. You can mask a bad passing attack by having a great ground game. But there will be moments late in the season where we're like, okay, here you go, Drake May. Here you go, Bo Nix. Eventually down the road, here you go, Jackson Dart. Here you go, Caleb Williams. You got to make a play. You always hear the announcer say, someone's got to step up and make a play. Well, it's time for the quarterback to make a play. That's where we're really going to see where these guys are at because, yeah, you get the wins and losses during the regular season, but you get paid in the postseason. Your legacy, your career is defined not week 1 to 16, week 1 to 17. It's in the postseason. And I think you've got a couple of these quarterbacks that we're talking about that are going to be in the postseason for a long time. Like, I can see there's some staying power with what the Bears are doing. And Jordan Love's right there too. Jared Goff on the back nine. He's got a couple years left. Don't get me wrong. Stafford on the back line, on the back nine. Eventually, some of these younger quarterbacks are going to start to take over, and we're going to talk about Drake May, Bo Nix, Jackson Dart, Purdy, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, the new crop, right? Maybe Cam Ward, top 10, top 15. And some of these veterans are going to be retired. They're going to be, outside that top 10. They already had their runs. The Jacksons, the Allens, the Mahomes. It happens in sports. It happens in the NFL. It's a young man's game. And I know the reason you asked me about Kansas City, because if you just go by the body of work, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 11, you're talking guys at a bar, they're going to say, oh, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Kelsey. You kidding me? Got to go with Kansas City. They've done it before. Yeah, but that was, the old Kansas City. And I know every time we do the picks and we talk about who's Kansas City's playing and we have fun, we go back and forth. Are they cooked? Are they not? Well, you can't write them off. They're still the Kansas City Chiefs. It's different this season. It is a down year. They are a 500 football team. So if Denver and New England is what their record is, then guess what? Kansas City is what their record is. They're an average team. You have to look past, that Chiefs red. You have to look past the mystique, Mahomes and Reed and Kelsey and all these, great players that they've had over the last several years making these runs to AFC championship games and the Super Bowl. They're not the same team. They're not. And I think they got exposed against the Cowboys. And I really think this game coming up against the Texans, this could be the knockout blow, because that Texans defense, as good as Denver is overall, you talk about that Texans pass defense, they're very good. If Kansas City can't run the ball, you might get an ugly Mahomes game. Like, this is a great test for the Texans, but this is also, here's your moment, Kansas City. This is it. This is it. You got knocked down a couple times earlier in the fight. You got to show me something this round. You got to show me something. You got to start. Listen, you can take some shots, but you got to let your hands go. You got to stay in the round. That's Kansas City right now. They are fighting for their playoff lives. They are They need to run the table. I don't care what, the percentages are. They need to run the table. If they want to get in the playoffs, they must run the table. It starts with the Texans. They might trip up against the Chargers. They still got to play Denver. I mean, it's a tough road ahead, man. And when they were, trying to punch up the weight class, or where everyone suspected that Kansas City's going to win easily, they lost to Buffalo, they lost to Denver, and they lost to the Cowboys. They were favorites in all those games. So, like I said, man, it's a down year, and that happens in the NFL. So, you have a down year, but you've been to so many championship games. You're winning Super Bowls left and right. So, what do you do in the offseason? All right, I still got the nucleus. Maybe I need to go out and get another running back. Maybe I need to go add a wide receiver. Maybe I need to go and get a DB. Maybe I need to shore up the offensive line. So, what do? As Joe Vaughn says, and it's perfect, you retool. It's exactly what you do. You retool, you reboot in the offseason, right? The ground game. Get younger, get better on the D line. Yes, they've been underwhelming. That's been their signature. And the blueprint's been set a couple years ago with Tampa Bay when they beat Kansas City. No quarterback wants to get knocked off their spot. You do it with Mahomes, he's human. These Broncos have 2011 Niners written all over them when Alex Smith was the starter. Ooh, 2011. Can we go to Pro Football Reference for a moment? That was a very nasty team. 13-3. Now, do we want to continue with that season? That was a great Niners team. I mean, I think Madman knows. I think he's about to call me a rat, so I'm just going to leave it alone. But that was a great team. I always liked Alex Smith. I always liked Alex Smith. Thought he was just a good quarterback, serviceable quarterback. Won a lot of games in the NFL, right? Their defense was ridiculous. Sorry, I meant 2000. Okay. Michael says, I get it. When they made the ball. All right. That's fair. That was 2012, right? But you know what? They weren't as good as that 2011 team. And they should have beat the Ravens in the Super Bowl. Let's be honest. That was a crazy game. They destroyed Green Bay. Who they beat? Did they play Atlanta? in the NFC Championship game? Who'd they play in that NFC Championship game? But the Super Bowl against the Ravens, that was a crazy Super Bowl. That's when the lights went off, right? The lights went out. 49ers were a 4.5 point favorite in that game. 4.5 point favorite. I thought they played Atlanta, maybe Seattle. I don't remember. 2011, they weren't ready yet. 2012, down 0-17 to Atlanta. 2011, I mean, come on now. At home against the Giants. That was a tough loss. I don't want to rehash that for you, my friend. All right. Tomorrow, a little Woosah Wednesday. We got to get to more college football, do we not? We'll dive into some college football. I still want to have this conversation. Lane Kiffin, sprinkle in a little college basketball. I will say this. Just remember, we're at the point of the NFL season where there are a lot of coaches that are going to be fighting for their jobs, and there's a lot of players that got to get it on film, and especially the quarterbacks, especially these bridge quarterbacks. The young quarterbacks, we know they're going to make mistakes. We just know that, because they're young quarterbacks. That's okay. It's just, when are you going to make that mistake, right? That's the problem. When are you making that mistake? You're going to do it in the playoffs, or are you going to do it, week 13, 14, maybe early on in the second quarter where you're up by 17, you can live with it. And it's all about trends. The teams that we talked about, again, these guys are trending up. Big Blue chimes in. Q, did you listen to Joe Schoen presser? Leonard broke him. I think he's a dead man walking. He's done. I listened to it. Obviously, I had to come on air. I will go back and listen to it. But yeah, I just, for the Giant fans, a lot of you guys are commenting. I couldn't get to all the comments. At this point, it is what it is. You got to just tear it down and build it back up. And that means some painstaking. You might get another lean year or two, but there's talent. And if we learned anything in the NFL, you can turn it around. Quarterback, we don't want to see him take those hits, right? Q, do you see your man Odell? Are you friggin' kidding me? He's out of touch with reality. Quote, he told the Pivot, it's nearly impossible to build generational wealth with a 5-year, $100 million contract. So my buddy texted me that. That's absurd. Did he really say that? I mean, if you screw up 100 million, can you imagine imagine $1 million, right? All started with bad juju against Baltimore. Huge play call back for a bogus illegal formation call. Kind of like when the Giants played the Ravens in the Super Bowl and they picked off Dilfer. And you know what call I got? They got defensive holding by a lineman on a pick. And then it went downhill. Yeah, I can't believe Beckham said that. That's $100 million and you can't build generational wealth. Wow. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, like I said, guys, I don't know what to tell you with comments like that coming out of some of these athletes. No idea. No idea what to tell you on that, because if you screw that up, you got some issues, man. You got some issues. All right. Woosah Wednesday coming up. Got to thank our sponsors. Get ready with tea, fresh roasted coffee, 20% off your first purchase, BYT20. Also, Jersey Shore Breaks getting set inaugural season in the USBL. They got the combine coming up Saturday, 12 to 6. Check out their Facebook page for any hoopers out there for more information. Also, we'll welcome in a couple of new sponsors, Pliable in Belmar, and also Monmouth Park Charity Fund. And as always, our good friends over at Play It Again Sports. 2 locations, 1450 Clements Ridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey, and of course, in Mount Laurel. Back Your Play will be dropped later on the week. Myself and Lloyd, that'll be on TV 48 WWON. Overseas Dimes is up and running on Channel 82 in the gorgeous and very warm island of Bermuda. And then tomorrow, Woosah Wednesday, we'll see if we can track down Costco, a lot more college football, NFL. I want to start mixing in some hot stove baseball and NBA. Yes, I got to do it. I want to talk a little NBA. Sorry, guys. Little association on Woosah Wednesday. Back in the saddle, manana, 4 to 6. As always, don't forget, Get social with us. Very easy to do. Add Rich Q on Q, X and IG, TikTok Rich Q on the mic. Subscribe, like, and comment to the YouTube channel. And if you want to comment that my face is punchable on TikTok as well as my YouTube shorts, that's not a problem as well, because you know what? I'll take the views. I'm not going to say no to any criticism or views. Good stuff with the comments. As always, appreciate you guys keeping us tuned in and locked in for 2 hours on a Tuesday in December right here on Q. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Be safe, be sound. We'll talk to you mañana on a Wusa Wednesday. Until then, hasta luego, mi dia.